Among the 5 presidents that we've had in Kenya, from Jomo Kenyatta, Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, Mwai Kibaki, Uhuru Kenyatta, and now William Samoei Ruto, if you are to rank them from the best to the worst, how would your ranking be? Please share with me in the comment section, even though I know many did not see the Kenyatta government, but we've read on books and we've been told, because history is passed from one generation to the other. But how would your ranking be? This question has come up because William Samoei Ruto, while officiating the meeting, the parliamentary group meeting together with the cabinet in Naivasha, told Kenyans that the problem that we have in Kenya today is as a result of poor and bad leadership since independence. It is saying that for the very first time, Kenya has had the best president in the name of William Samoei Ruto, who is ready to make hard decisions to ensure that Kenya as a country will move forward in terms of economic and political steps that Kenya is going to make under his leadership.
Kenya is a great country. Where we are today and where we should have been is a function of leadership. There are countries that were peers to Kenya a few years ago. Today, they are very well ahead of us. Examples are all over. And that is why I said when we opened this retreat that we have a historic moment, friends and colleagues. We have a historic moment to take Kenya to where Kenya should be. We are the leaders who will finally unlock the tremendous potential that our country portends. We have a great people, very hardworking population. We have innovative young population. We have a responsibility to make sure that we provide the leadership that will take Kenya to the next level. The challenge Kenya has always had, and we must make a difference this time round, is the challenge of leadership. Leadership. All of us must step forward. Myself as the team leader of this team, my deputy here, every cabinet secretary, every principal secretary must step forward and understand that we are the leaders of Kenya. And if Kenya is to go places, it is us to lead the way. That responsibility is a responsibility bestowed on us by the people of Kenya, and it is God who has given us the chance to lead this nation. I want to implore on each and every one of you to go out of your way. Let's make it business unusual and make a mark, make a difference in the ministry you are in, the State Department you are in. Make a difference.
You know, Waswahili wanasema chema chajiuza, kibaya chajitembeza. You need to let people give you accolades. You need to earn accolades from people who see your rule and your governance. You don't need to force it down the throat of people. William Ruto cannot come up and tell people that he is the best president, that we've had leadership that did not mean well to the people of Kenya. Now, Kenyans went to the archives as usual, and they retrieved a video in which the late President Mwai Kibaki was cautioning his government after taking over from Moi after 24 years of dictatorship and poor economic growth, unemployment, and all that goes with it. And Kibaki knew very well that he had inherited a government that was not going to be built by rhetorics and verbal exchange. And so he had this advice to give to his people.
And as I look around the whole world where Kenyans have migrated to, we have enormous supply of qualified manpower and women power all over the world. And we hope that they will come back and that they will join us in building that new Kenya. So as we think of that new Kenya, please let us make a decision today that history shall be written by historians, and that we don't spend a lot of valuable time wasting time arguing about who did what or who should have done what and did not do. Let us focus on things which require doing, and they are very
Tuwe na bilateral labor agreements with many countries. Germany wameniuliza wafanyikazi, Marekani wametuuliza wafanyikazi, Ugaibuni wametuuliza wafanyikazi, Canada wametuuliza wafanyikazi.
So I want to juxtapose the two presidents because their speeches express what they believe in, their thoughts and feelings. And the reason why Kenyans picked on the late President Kibaki is because William Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua has always told us that they want to take Kenya back to where Kibaki left it, because they have always maintained that under Kibaki, at least the economy grew, and they've always said that it is because Kibaki collected taxes, and that is why they want to justify why they are collecting taxes. You know, when William Ruto tells us that we are where we are because of the poor leadership that we have experienced in the successive governments, then we find a lot of fallacy and hypocrisy in Ruto's statements. Because one, Ruto worked under Moi as an assistant minister. It is said that he was one of the most powerful assistant ministers who could sit in a cabinet. So when he wants to say that there was poor leadership from Moi, he is part of it, because ministers and assistant ministers are the ones who are supposed to champion the development agenda in a particular government. So he was part of that poor leadership. Under Kibaki, because he even believes that Kibaki didn't do so much, he was part and parcel of it. He was a minister in Kibaki's government. So every success and failure that happened, he is part and parcel of it. And when you come to what we now call Uhuru government, Ruto was in that government as the deputy president, the first deputy president under the new constitution. And you know, William Ruto is so hyperactive and so much full of himself that at some point it was said that it was Ruto who was running the government. He himself alluded to those facts when they decided and started insulting Uhuru, that Uhuru was merrymaking in State House when Ruto was working. So he cannot blame Uhuru. And this talk of poor leadership is neither here nor there, because William Ruto has been in all those successive governments. But you hear Kibaki saying that we need to look for Kenyans who are scattered all over the world so that we can bring them, because Kibaki was saying there, we have qualified Kenyans who can come and help us build our economy, build a better Kenya, because he had a vision, what he wanted to see in Kenya. And he believed that Kenya can only be built by Kenyans themselves. Compare that to William Ruto, who is telling us that Kenyans must go and work abroad, including Saudi Arabia, including Qatar and US and Canada. In other words, Kibaki believed in getting back our human power to help us build our economy. William Ruto believes that we need to export the manpower to go and build other countries. So when William Ruto tells us that he's got a vision for this country and that this time round we've gotten the best president who will take Kenya forward, I don't know whether you agree with him. I don't know whether you agree with him. But let us look at the difference between Kibaki and William Samoei Ruto. Kindly subscribe to our channel. If you're watching us for the first time, click the notification bell. To all our subscribers and our supporters, allow me to thank you very much for your support. Kibaki says very well that let us leave history to be written by historians. Let us not go back. Because if there is one person who was supposed to take a whole year lamenting and complaining, is Kibaki. Kibaki inherited a dilapidated economy. 24 years of Nyayo era that left Kenyans with an economy that was on its knees. But look at Kibaki. After calling all the think tanks, inviting all Kenyans who were scattered abroad to come here, he told them, this is no time to start complaining about who did this. Yani, he's just telling them, this is not the time to complain about sins of omission and commission. What this person did, what he didn't do, that has resulted to where we are. He said that was not going to help Kenyans. If you remember, when Kibaki got to power, the mode of transport, what we now call border, was being done by bicycles. And Kibaki sat down and he invited the Chinese government. And that is how we now have an influx of motorbikes. It was very difficult when climbing, some hill, and you that is your mode of employment, and you want to wake up every early in the morning with bicycles. It was very difficult. Some people still use it, but thank God that we now have a lot of motorbikes in the country. Mobile phones were very scarce in the country, and we had a rampant robbery and stealing of mobile phones because they were very, very few. There was scarcity. Kibaki negotiated, and that is how we now have quite a lot of mobile phones. People have told me that maybe we are using third class or fourth class, but you will agree with me that it has helped a lot. And then the internet that people are now making noise with and they want to make as a campaign tool. It was Kibaki who sat down and they dug and connected that fiber optic. We didn't have internet. There was a problem with our internet. So Kibaki connected that. And he believed that we were not going to build our country by rhetorics and constant politicking and blame game, something that our president is doing exactly the opposite. That's why I'm saying that I don't believe that William Ruto will succeed, even though he's telling us that he's the best president. We cannot focus on history. Let us leave history to be written by historians. Kibaki never talked too much. As I have said, he never engaged in politics. He knew very, very well what he wanted, to build an economy. And when the time comes for campaign, when the time comes for campaigns, we shall all be there. And he believed that you only campaign when the right time is viable. Now, Kibaki allowed his ministers to perform their work. But William Ruto is hands-on. You've seen some cabinet secretaries saying that some changes are made in their dockets without their knowledge. You can't imagine that William Ruto is going to negotiate for domestic work in Saudi Arabia. Yet we have ambassadors there, we have cabinet secretaries. You wonder, then what are they doing? He wants to take political mileage. Anytime he's talking, what is in his mind is so much engrossed about political mileage that people must say that I'm the one who did this. He is full of himself, ever talking about myself, I, and all this. But Kibaki allowed his ministers to do their work so that you are responsible for whatever you're doing. William Ruto will say that you are responsible, but then he is micromanaging ministers. And that is why I'm saying that there's a great difference between William Ruto and all these presidents, even though he's telling us that he is the best. Mwai Kibaki balanced the superpowers, the Eastern powers and the Western powers. He worked very closely with the Chinese government, and that is how we built the Thika superhighway and all the highways that we are building here, because he knew very well the value that he would get from the Eastern powers. He also never kicked away the Western powers. In fact, it was the Western powers that allowed him to govern and rule when he rigged elections in 2007. And they denied Raila that win. Raila became a prime minister. But Kibaki balanced them so well. If you look at the government that we have today, we are a puppet of the US. The other time when Russia organized for the Russia-African summit, William Ruto decided not to go because there was stern instructions from the US not to go there. So our president has decided to align very closely with the Western powers, despising the Eastern powers. And I know you'll be asking me that he's been going to Korea and China, all that. He's going to China because we have a loan. He cannot neglect them. But if William Ruto had ascended to power, or had he ascended to power without any loan from the Chinese government, William Ruto would have worked solely with the World Bank and the IMF, because we have surpassed the loans that Uhuru took by some trillions or billions, if you ask me. And the loans are coming specifically from the West. And the international, the IMF is dictating how we are supposed to govern ourselves, how many people we are supposed to employ, and all that. So William Ruto is working very closely with the Western powers, neglecting the Eastern powers. And so I wanted to submit to you very humbly that William Ruto should not hoodwink Kenyans, that he's the best president. Let Kenyans decide for themselves. I remember the last time there was an opinion poll, William Ruto was ranked at D, with most of his ministers also getting a D, and the deputy president getting an E. Because whether it is our shillings, it has weakened. Our political standing within East Africa and Africa as a whole, we have created enmity between Kenya and other countries. Congo, Uganda, Sudan, some of them have even recalled their ambassadors. We do not have a cordial relationship that we used to enjoy during Kibaki and Uhuru. That is why even today, the Raila's chances of becoming an AU commission chairman is solely dependent on him and if Uhuru will help him campaign. His network and that one of Uhuru, because many of these presidents do not like William Samoei Ruto, because William Ruto is a new kid on the block, but he wants to act as a prefect. Ladies and gentlemen, what do you think about Ruto's statements? Do you think he is the best? Do you think that Kenya is headed in the right direction? Because if you ask me, the high taxes is one thing that is driving away investors. It is not helping us at all. Note that William Ruto does not even want to listen to the courts. that had declared the housing levy unconstitutional, but still goes ahead with it. And so, in my ranking, William Ruto would be the worst president. We have a Moi, a learned Moi, a Moi without a rungu.